Very basic dismantling job. Just cut the 2 haunches and the remaining shoulder off, and that's what we're going to cook underground today. Be beautiful. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to camp. Ray. BJ.
Hi, BJ.
I'm Gordon.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, PPG.
Hello.
I'm Gordon. Hello, I'm Gordon.
Nice to meet you. But there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's a pit to be dug and a fire to be made to heat some rocks. And my guests set to in impressive style. King Alfred's cake fungus, found growing on dead wood, can catch a spark and create a tiny ember. The rocks will slowly absorb the heat of the fire until they glow, and they'll then release that heat to cook our venison in the pit. It takes a while, so we've got time to gather my favourite wild roots to roast alongside the venison. What we're after is burdock. This great herb grows over 2 years, and the big leaves of its first summer signify a tasty tuber underground.
So here we have the flesh white, glistening with starch and full of nutrients.
Yeah.
Wow, that is fantastic.
You look like you need a feed now.
Yeah. I'm robust enough to dig this sort of hole, no problem.
That's a fantastic amount of food though. Well done.
Bye.
So it's time to get down to the cookery. The burdock roots are cleaned up. Scorching rocks line the pit. The venison and veg go in. Okay, burdock roots. And then the pit is sealed. Pit cooking is typical of feasting I've witnessed, and though it takes a lot of energy to prepare, the calories in the venison will more than replace what's been used, and just goes to underline the importance of meat in a hunter-gatherer diet. While it's cooking, we've got time to check on the drying rack.
I've never seen this actually done before. It's very interesting.
Well, you can see now the meat's stiff.
Well, that is
The way it's dried.
absolutely, and now I'm very surprised to see that. I thought with all the crosswinds taking the heat away, we would fail to heat up to the top here.
All the heat was to do was to create dry air here, and this
right.
just holds it. I didn't want to cook it. This hasn't
Right.
been cooked. It's just been dried, and the smoke helps to deter flies. You can try a bit of this, Gordon. That's now ready. That's ready now to eat.
This is jerky.
Effectively, it's jerky. Yeah, unseasoned jerky.
It's very good.
It's nice, isn't it?
Mm.
And of course, that can be stored indefinitely now, put into a skin bag, and carried. So maybe here, 8,000, 6,000 years ago, who knows? There may have been a hunting camp, and they probably would have left these smokers in place and just refreshed them when they next needed to use them.
Marvellous. Good stuff.
Of course, jerky will keep you going, but for my money, you can't beat pit roast venison. Well, fellas, it's had more than 2.5 hours. I reckon it should be done. Only one way to find out, and that's to dig it up. And we've invited Peter back to try it. Brilliant. Smell that burdock root. I can smell the burdock.
Ah, what a gooey smell.
Okay, so that could go out onto the leaves we cut a moment ago.
Yeah.
Oh, that's well done.
Oh, that looks so good.
We've got our archaeological guest here. Peter is an expert on the hunting techniques from the Stone Age.
Gives a whole new insight.
Good, isn't it?
Brilliant.
Guys, you've done the work. Enjoy it. Burdock is... I don't know whether you've had burdock cooked in a ground oven before. Have you done that?
Not in the ground oven, yeah. I've always cooked it in the embers before.
Yeah.
And over fast, I think.
Which is the quick way. Try that and see.
So this is the outer cortical layer here?
Yeah. It's good, isn't it?
Better than cooked in the embers?
Yeah, definitely.
It's like sweet potato.
We don't know for sure if our ancestors feasted this way, but from our experiments at camp, I'm confident Mesolithic hunters were not simply scraping a living, but were at home in forests full of opportunity and making use of it all. Well, we're coming towards the end of our camping here, Gordon, and it seems to leave me with more questions than answers.
Yes, absolutely. We've got some further work to do before we get to a resolution, I think.
When I think back over the summers that we've been out working this time of year, and all the small victories that we've had, it just shows you how much knowledge has been lost.
Absolutely.
It's generations of knowledge that's been lost, because in our lifetimes there are only so many summers that we can work on these species.
That's right. People speak so glibly about this and that being edible, but how is it done?
I think the other thing I find interesting about our ancestors is when we look at the archaeological record, as Peter quite rightly said, you know, there are lots of tools that illustrate that there was a lot of hunting going on, that hunting was tremendously important to our ancestors, and yet as a society today we barely understand hunting.
Yes, giving a glimpse, a little narrow glimpse of the past and the importance of that sort of resource.
But I've really enjoyed being out. I don't know about you, I feel quite weary now. It's the hot weather is very sapping, isn't it?
It is, and but it's been a real pleasure to be in this lovely part of the world and in this gorgeous woodland here.
Yeah, no, I like it here. Woods always give me a sense of belonging, and our ancestors would have made a similar connection with the places where they spent time. Sadly, we'll never know about the spiritual traditions of our ancestors. But just maybe they did things like I've seen in Canada, where the Indians believe in placing the bones of the animals they've hunted in the trees with great reverence. In fact, they believe that if this isn't done, the animals feel there's been disrespect and won't allow themselves to be hunted in the future. The other reason for doing it is to indicate to hunters who come along what animals have been hunted in a specific area. That prevents overpredation of the game upon which the people depended.
The truth about food for children. Dead Ringers star Jan Ravens is as confused as the rest of us. Tomorrow at 9. Next tonight on BBC Two, is it time to rethink our attitudes to air travel?